Good morning. It's 8:31. Call to order the Board of Franklin County Commissioners meeting for Wednesday, February 1st.
Commissioner Howard?
Present.
Vice Chair Renaud?
Present.
Chair Howard? Chair Waymeyer?
Present.
Couldn't get over that. Commissioner Oglesby?
Present.
Commissioner Dunn?
Present.
If you'd please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we want to thank you this morning for the privilege of being able to wake up and receive your new mercies this morning that you promised. Lord, we thank you for the sacrifice and the service, often thankless and given by our public servants, not only in the city but the county as well. Lord, we pray that you'd give them the wisdom that they seek as they continue to make decisions, both in law enforcement and around the county as well. Lord, it's a great privilege to be a citizen of the United States of America, and we thank you for that. Also the state of Kansas and Franklin County. Lord, bless this day. We thank you for the beautiful weather you've granted. We look forward to being recipients of your grace throughout the day. Be the proceedings of the rest of this commission meeting. May it be productive as they prepared for it. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. That was Pastor Aaron Harshaw from Grace Gospel Church in Ottawa. We appreciate him taking his time and coming in to lead the invocation. Brings us to correspondence and organizational business.
I don't have anything at this time.
All right. That brings us to general public comment. Is there any public comment?
Yes, our first one is Norman Woogie.
All right. As you've spoke several times before, I'm sure you're aware of the policy, so I'll spare reading it.
I'll be gentle.
All right.
Norman Woogie, 3790 Pawnee Road, Ottawa, Kansas. Your commission will make a decision on the new motel, yes or no. There are 7 Holiday Inns within 40 miles of here toward Kansas City and Lawrence. I can usually see what is best for our community. This has been a bit of a challenge. We don't need another motel. We need a GM center that services new cars there. That services, sells new cars. We now, as coroners, need to spend our money in Garnett, Lawrence, Paola, Topeka, or the Kansas City area. And the last thing I bought was in Topeka, starter for my car. The question comes down to, what would Jesus do? You know, I heard last week, this is in the prayer. Jesus would not make anyone angry. Jesus wouldn't fold under pressure from the money grabbers. Jesus wouldn't let prejudice enter in it. Jesus would not be tempted. In conclusion, vote what's right for the Ottawa community. It's best interest. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Jean Hurt.
Good morning, Gene.
Good morning, Commissioners. Gene Hurt, 107 Jefferson Street, Pomona, Kansas. Well, this is the first one that I'm going to be speaking on today. And this one here is about our schools and that are probably maybe in jeopardy. I hope not, but I hope our leaders will be in Topeka, because from all the discussion that I've been hearing, especially from the superintendent here in Ottawa, what will we get cut this time? I hope all of them have some kind of back where they can get cash at a reserve, because we're going to get hit again. You know, I feel sorry for our schools in this district. Wellsville, West Franklin, Ottawa, as well as Central Heights. You know, each year we face this every time when they go up there. And I hope and pray that people will pray that this is an important entity for this county, as well as it is for the whole state of Kansas. Because we're going to have this straightened out one way or the other, because we can't keep coming with reserves and money for the schools in the future. So I ask everybody to say a prayer for our schools today and what's to come, and hope that we can survive through this supposedly cuts on our schools. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Gene. Anyone else?
No.
All right. That brings us to consent agenda, which is kind of sizable today. We would be considering to approve the minutes for meetings on our meeting on January 25th. Considering tax change orders in the amount of a negative $108.64. Approving an emergency vehicle permit for Colton Gavel. Consider payroll and approve for the period of December 21, 2016 through January 20, 2017, the amount of $1,180,599.93. Special payroll in the amount of $951.85. Claim vouchers in the amount of $850,111.85. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
I'll second that. Do we need to do anything you got a second? Do we need to do anything different with the regular agenda if we're going to add a executive session or not? Okay.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Waymer?
Yes. All right, that brings us to item of business. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I see we have a large crowd, and I assume a lot of that's the fifth item on our agenda, so if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to move that up. So that fifth item is discussion of using transient guest tax funds to help incentivize a potential hotel development project. The way this will go, we'll have a presentation from the applicant, then we'll take public comment, and it'll be back to commissioners for asking questions and deliberating. I believe Mike Works is back to give us a presentation and pick up where we left off.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Mike Works, Lincoln, Nebraska. Thanks for having me back. I think I passed out, or Matt did earlier, a packet of information. We basically went back with your questions from last week and went to the experts. And so what you've got is a packet of information. The first 2 pages is a letter from Abby Spurrier. Abby Spurrier is a leading feasibility expert in the field of hotels. She literally does hundreds of these each year for all kinds of people. We're certainly not one of her bigger clients, but we have used her in the past. She has told us yes before. She's also told us no, don't go places before. In this case, we went to her with the specific question that was asked by this commission last week, and that was, where is this revenue coming from, right? Why be in Ottawa? Is this revenue going to be stolen from the existing hotels, or is it are we creating new revenue? And that's what actually it's a 48-page report. I mean, she's got a lot of background information that she uses that I don't necessarily have access to, but she does. It's in the report that you guys have. We have one copy of that for you. I have another copy I can leave with you. We don't need to go through all 48 pages right now, but suffice it to say that it's J.D. Power and Associates. It's the STAR report from Smith Travel Research. It's those items that hotel experts use when they are trying to figure out what to do with a location. But what I want to focus on is her first 2 pages. And I guess before we do that, real quickly, I just want to make clear that what you're allowing us to do by helping us out here, by the city and the county helping us out here, is to bring a high-class, top-line franchise that is missing in your market to your market. Something that we can't do without the help of the county and the city, and neither can another developer because it just doesn't financially make sense. And so, you know, that's what we're trying to bring to the hotel. It's a perceived need that the city has identified as a need, that the franchises that you know, Holiday Inn has identified as a need, that some of your bigger businesses in town have identified as a need, that they're currently sending people out of town instead of keeping them here. And so that's the need that we're trying to fill. And by you, hopefully, granting us some help today, that's what you're helping us to be able to do. And so just want to remember that we're basically, even with the displacement from other hotels, we're bringing, in addition, at least another 30,000 people to town every year. 30,000 people to eat at your restaurants, eat at Ottawa, or use Ottawa gas, buy Ottawa gas, shop at Ottawa stores. People that otherwise aren't staying here now. And that's even with the displacement. I mean, just on an average of 2.4 people per room, which is the national average, we're going to bring in well over 40,000 people. We're saying 30 because there's going to be some displacement. So I want to make sure we understand that. The sales tax, obviously, that's a big benefit to the sales tax. We'll talk about the transient guest tax here in a second. And the other thing is that by your helping us, we're helping back by cleaning up the corner that really is your gateway to the city. And this, as you know, the city is asking us to pay for some items that the city can't pay for, the county can't pay for, which is a new road, and it's several $100,000 that we're being willing to pay, which doesn't necessarily benefit our site, but does benefit the development out there, and they know that this is their opportunity to get that done so that there can be further development out there. So just quickly off the top, going back to this letter, your question specifically was, are we displacing business or are we creating new business? Like I said, Abby Spurrier is an expert in the area. We went to her, just left her with the question and said, you do the research, come back to us. She took a week. She got this back to us yesterday afternoon. But I think the most important thing, and she goes through the market, gives her details as to what the Smith Travel Research report shows and the percentages and the occupancy that's here. She talks about how many rooms are in town. I would like to focus on the second page because I think that's where she comes to her conclusions. So on the second page of her letter, that second paragraph there, I think her first real conclusion that's important to realize is that the rooms at our hotel are a higher level of room, and she's pointing that out here. You know, the ADR on the Smith Travel report on what's here now, ADR for your area is $71.21, which, and she shows that is a 6% tax rate. Your transient guest tax is about $4.27 a room. The average ADR for the hotels in Southeast Kansas, and I would refer you back to this page, which is occupancy ADR and reservation contribution, which is, I think, the third page that I gave you. That came straight from IHG, the parent company for Holiday Inn Express, and that is a summary of their hotels in Southeast Kansas, which includes this area, with their occupancy of an average of 75%, their average daily rate of $117, and the reservation contribution of 60%. And I guess there's a couple of numbers on there I'd like to point out. The first one is the average daily rate at $117. That's just a completely different level of service and hotel than what you have here today. You have nice hotels here today, but they are at a hotel at a different level and a different price point. Our price point is higher. And Abby Spurrier is pointing that out in that paragraph, that because of that, the displaced rooms that you're moving over are actually creating more revenue or more transient guest tax at our hotel than they would at another hotel because of the higher rate. She's also pointing out that in the second to last paragraph, where it says Holiday Inn Express will attract a different type of traveler, not focused on price point, but on consistent room amenities and quality. Again, she's just pointing out that what we believe as developers is that it's something that's missing in this market. And so, more than anything, I'm just pointing out what conclusions she came to here. The third paragraph down, which starts with, we feel the market is losing a large majority of market share because of the existing product. Again, that's her conclusion, not mine. And I'm just pointing out that she on her own, based on her understanding of the market and understanding of the hotels in general, that's what she's coming up with as well. And that's going to be echoed, I think, by the city today, and certainly what we've heard from other businesses in town. So That's Abby Spurrier. The other page that I gave you is a projected transient guest tax receipts page. It's just a summary of our projected revenues and what that transient guest tax, and it looks like this, I apologize. It's this one. And it's just a summary so you can see in a worst-case scenario what your TGT collections are going to look like after, if we are allowed to build and actually produce these revenues. So our projected revenues, it shows what TGT we create. It shows the rebate back to us of that 3%. And then it shows the current TG collected, which was a 2015 number from the city of $180,492. It shows worst-case scenario, which is described in Abby Spurrier's letter, of 7.5%. I'm doing it for the whole market. She's showing it only as the Best Western and the Comfort Inn. If we lose that 7.5% because of shift, then it shows the new TGT collected. But bottom line is, and you can see it, in a worst-case scenario, you guys are, the county will be collecting an additional $36,000 in year one. And that's a worst-case scenario. So you asked that question as to where does that put us at the end of the day. Based on Abby Spurrier's numbers, not mine, but Abby Spurrier's and IHG numbers, that's where it leaves you. So I guess at the end of the day, we appreciate you taking a look at this. This is something, we'd love to be in Ottawa, but we can't do it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If we can't do it without help from the county and the city. It just financially doesn't make any sense. It's just better deals, and the cost of construction is too high. So we're here because of a need that's been identified by the city. When we contacted the city, they were the ones that suggested that this is where it needed to be. This is what we need in town. The meeting room is an add-on. We talked about the meeting room last week. That's not why we're really here. We're here because we want to build you a hotel that is in need. The meeting room, if we get to the 10-year 3%, that's something we would like to do. And I think from what I've heard in the past week is something that the city and the county want as well. If we do that, it's a 1,200 to 1,500 square foot meeting space with high-end audio-visual equipment, and a lot of money goes into that. So, but at the end of the day, if we were only coming here because of the existing business, we wouldn't be here. It just doesn't make sense. There's not enough existing business to warrant a brand-new 85-room hotel in town.
So you're telling me you don't think a motel sitting on next to I-35, there's enough business going up and down I-35 to...
Absolutely. That's why we're here. We think I-35 absolutely makes sense. And if you can build my hotel for what it cost 5 years ago to build my hotel, absolutely, then we would be here. But it doesn't, today's construction costs are a good 20%, 25% higher than they were 5 years ago.
So what would you estimate the cost to build that hotel out there?
We're going to be at about $115,000 a key to build that hotel, especially when you consider the extra...
$115,000 a key?
A key, yes, on 85 rooms, to build that hotel, especially when you consider the extra road work and everything we have to do for the city.
Is it true that, I guess we can take public comment, come back and ask questions? It might be better, but is it true that you would not come if the transient guest tax rebate's not approved, or that you would come regardless but not include a meeting room and not develop that site?
If you say no to everything today, then we would have to go back to the drawing board and actually think about what we're doing. Yes, I don't know that we are coming if we can't do something with the county. Either that or the city has to come up with something else to make up for that difference.
Well, I've seen nothing of what the city's putting forward. I know they're going to have some tax breaks and so forth, but I've seen no numbers of what they're actually putting into this deal. And my thing is, this is in the city limits of Ottawa, and I'd like to have a clue what they're actually putting forward, or are we putting a big chunk forward?
And that's fair, and that's part of the conversation we had with folks in town when we first came and talked about the transient guest tax. And I think we talked about this last week. I mean, we have friends that have gotten a full 6% rebate for a period of time from other cities. We didn't ask for that because, honestly, it was brought up that county and city are two separate things here, and we're only asking for half of it because we're only asking for money that we ourselves are creating. I mean, that's the other part of this. We're not asking anything out of your coffers. We're asking something that we're creating ourselves.
Or you want to go to the other
think we
one
better
first,
hear
because I
from you.
got several questions.
Okay, we'll take public comment, get everybody's
That's great,
point of
thank you.
view above board, and then we'll come back and kind of deliberate and ask questions.
Our first public comment is Joe Ferguson.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. I'm here this morning to speak in opposition to the proposed hotel using the transient guest tax. For over 30 years, I traveled across America while serving the United States Army and while serving as a federal contractor for the Department of Defense and the government. And I've had the privilege of staying in almost every kind of hotel you would think of, to include mom and pop shops. The Holiday Inn hotels, they're okay, but they're not much better than what we already have here. If you've been out here and you've looked at any of these parking lots of these hotels, there's not enough business here. And if Holiday Inn Express thinks that there is, they need to build it on their own money. Now, according to the Chamber of Commerce website, the major businesses in Ottawa, if you total up all their employees for these major businesses, it's 3,720 folks for the major businesses. I graduated from Ottawa High School in 1976. I started my Army career of 22 years in service in August of 1976. The population back then was 11,000 to 12,000 folks. Today, we are only at 12,649 folks. We've only grown since 1900, 5,715 folks. Now, I started working in the grocery business back when I was a youngster at 17. A&P, Waymeyers, Pence's IGA, and Safeway to build my future. But that was before the board approved Walmart Supercenter to come to town. And look what happened to our grocery stores. If I remember right, it was Brown's Hardware out here that closed because they couldn't compete. I don't want to see other businesses from our county close shop and then we have vacant buildings here because of a decision that we are making. Every action has a reaction, and that's what's about to happen. One thing we forget to talk about at our kitchen tables and in the media is all the revenues that we lost in the county because of the grocery stores and the businesses that closed because Walmart Supercenter comes here. I'll grant you, they have 260, 280 employees out here. That's great, but that's not enough. If Ottawa wants to get serious about building Ottawa, why not build a grocery store on the north side of Ottawa like we had at Pence's IGA when it was across from the co-op? We have some success stories for our young people, and that's what I base my hopes on for this county, is the young people of this county. Country Mart, when they were here, they hired a lot of youth. Price Choppers has kept that tradition going with their brand new store. Smoke Creation's the same way. You got a lot of high school and college folks out there. How many of you commissioners have personally visited, and this is hypothetical, don't answer, but how many of you have visited our hotels out here, looked at their facilities? We don't need, there's plenty of space for meeting rooms in Ottawa, Kansas. Look at the Washburn Towers out here. There's a meeting space out there. You might have to set up some table and chairs, but we're a farming community. We've done the hard work before. This county would be better served to make sure that our infrastructure is placed out here in our new industrial park area. We don't have the water, sewage, electrical, or any of that in place. So our new county administrator that we're about to hire, and that's going to help you put together one big incentive package that's going to bring in the hundreds and thousands of jobs to Franklin County that we deserve because we are on the I-35 corridor, we're never going to achieve our goals. I ask that you vote no on this proposal to use the transient guest tax. If the Holiday Inn Express wants to build, they need to build it on their own merit. Thank you.
Joe, do you, Mr. Ferguson, did you get the address?
I have it, yes.
3335 Rock Creek Road,
Yeah.
Ottawa, Kansas.
Thank you.
Our next one is Patricia Clausen.
I have also brought things for you. Store report and other information.
Thank you.
My name is Patricia Clausen, 515 West 2nd Street. As you can see, the STAR report shows the 2 years, 15th and 16th, for Ottawa and surrounding areas. Our occupancy at the Comfort Inn was 57.9% in 2015, which was the best since 2008. But overall, for all the hotels, it was 41.9%. Which obviously shows it's not 100% occupancy for the hotels. In 2016, we were busier than we was in 2015. Our occupancy was 60.7%. But for overall, it was 40.2%. Once again, it's not 100% for the hotels. We can't stop the hotel from coming in, but we don't feel that it should have the tax incentives and the guest tax used for this purpose. None of the other hotels had this. TGG money not to be used for the county's personal gain. That's not what it was designed for. The county once said the funding, this new hotel was implied that it would add 3% to the guest tax. However, it was pointed out that this is not true, that it will also take a great deal from the transient guest tax. How? Smaller hotels like the Knights Inn and the Super 8 might have to close their doors. Econo-Lodge and Best Western and the Comfort Inn might have to lower their rates to $40 to $50 to $75 in order to keep the business. Comfort Inn's rates have been $119 to $139. This has changes according to what's going on in the town as well. So you can see the transient guest tax that is now being generated by the hotels would drastically change. Nights Inn, there would be no tax because it would close. The Days Inn would be gone, no transient guest tax. Super 8 would be gone. Econo-Lodge, half the amount of tax that is now collected. The Best Western, half the amount. Comfort Inn might be slightly higher than the rest, but it would still be affected. Everybody likes the word moving forward. Hotels, meeting rooms, 50, 60 room meeting room, maybe 75 people. Frontage roads, this is what your agenda is. You're losing sight of what is needed for the guests that come to Ottawa and Franklin County. You need to untie the hands of the people in tourism so that they can take care of this. You are not able to do this. Apparently, because of I lost train of thought, sorry. The hotels and motels need to be kept busy the year round, not just a few times a year. You got to bring things into town for them to do, so that they have more restaurants, nicer restaurants. They have activities outside of meetings and stuff. It was the County Development Council executive said competition is not always bad. Sometimes you have to have healthy competition and able to keep process in the community. He also says that some businesses could close. This is an unfortunate side effect. Healthy competition and unfortunate side effects. Healthy competition doesn't mean unfortunate side effects in a community. Building a community doesn't mean dumping part of it. It means adding to that community. To add to the community, you have to bring things into it. But this needs to be done in the right order. Wednesday's meeting was mentioned that you need an existing hotel because it can't meet the needs of the Ottawa University and the hospital. Well, I'm here to tell you you're wrong. The university had a water break in September. Sonny was called very early in the morning to help out. What could he do? The Ottawa University and the hospital both have contracted rates with our hotel. Our rates at the time was $119 to $139. They get $89.96 rates. Is this other hotel going to give them the low rates like that? This is all they could afford, is what they told us. During this problem with the students needing to be housed, our hotel was busy. We stopped taking reservations. We had stopped taking walk-ins. We had reservations that we had to honor that people were coming in. Still, this wasn't enough. We had to lower our rates to $71 to help so that they could make ends meet. Is this other hotel going to lower their rates to accommodate them? Ottawa University and hospital don't stay with us. Maybe you should be asking yourself, why is that? Obviously, there's enough hotel rooms to do so. TTT money and tax incentives. You need to give the tourist people the money to take care of tourism. You have county stuff that needs to be taken care of. You need to concentrate on that. In 1984, the tax was instated, the TTT tax was instated, 2%. 1996, the tax went up to 4%. And by 2003, the tax went up to 6%. You collect from the hotels, motels, and bed and breakfasts I got that figure wrong. Instead of 186,000, it's 180-some thousand. Where are you spending this money? We now know that you want to use it for incentives for frontage roads, hotels, and meeting rooms. Is this why you wanted to give the contract for the chamber 3 months? If you're doing nothing wrong, why was this hidden? We know that you also only gave you gave $47,000 to all the tourist people for last year. Where's the rest of the money? These are many questions that our people should be asking the county and holding you accountable. According to the state, when I talked, she called me back Wednesday after Wednesday's meeting. She said that if you were going to continue in this line, that you would have to opt out of the transit and guest tax. These would be unfortunate side effects. Is it healthy competition or is it unfortunate side effects? That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Have anyone else, Janet?
Yes. Jean Hurt.
Gene Hurt, 107 Jefferson Street, Pomona, Kansas. First of all, I want to say to Joe thank you for your service to your country, Joe. Proud of you. The next thing, I want to bring out what Pamela just said. You're going to have to opt out, gentlemen. You can't use this tax for build this only $110,000 hotel. Well, I beg to differ with that. It's going to be a lot more than that, gentlemen, because I talked to some people up in Lawrence about some of these Holiday Inn Expresses. And there's some hidden stuff around here that he ain't said yet. But rather than me bring it out, I guess you're going to have to learn it for yourself. Maybe if you are all going to go vote to put this hotel in here. This outfit is from Nebraska. I don't want anybody here in Nebraska. I want somebody from here. Well, what are you laughing about, Waymire? You think that's funny? I don't. We're supposed to put people here to benefit Ottawa and to hire people to build this, if you're going to build it, from Ottawa area, not some distant place or Kansas City or anywhere else. That's what our motive is. I don't want to see Ottawa fade, as what Pamela just stated about some of the things that have happened over the years. Because some of the rooms are $150. Oh, I guess you can take some cheap bedding or something and mattresses and put them in the rooms and lower the cost that way. But I don't want that type of hotel. These gentlemen here have been here all their lives trying to support the farm shows, the car shows, everything. And I think you better be wise to use the money different to maybe get a bigger park out there, because we ain't got no places to park on these events. Not alone have them. Right? You're not thinking right if you do this. There's enough evidence there. But see, here's some other things I found out. When they go people check out, they've had monster troubles with their credit card machines and so forth else that's happened in Lawrence. Yes. And the other thing is, if you look on the internet, and you don't have to believe me, you can go on there and see it yourself. What they find in those rooms, some of the people, when they go into these Holiday Inn Expresses. Cockroaches, bed bugs, yes. Blood on mattresses, dirty sheets. Hey, I don't want that reputation in here. Come on, I don't want it. And it's out there for anybody to see. I believe that you're doing a disservice to the hotels, the people of this county, to put this hotel there if it's just for a meeting room. My God. Joe said it best too. You got to do something more to make it more beneficial for everyone. And we sure don't need another hotel or motel in this town. Thank you.
Sunny Patel.
Hi, how are you, Kamala? How are you, Mr. Ray?
Sunny, what's your address again?
2335 South Oak, Ottawa, Kansas.
Thank you.
I guess I don't have to say a lot, There's a paper Patty just handed to you guys, And, there's company out there do physical study and all that. You give them the money, they're always going to take your favor because you're giving them $10,000, $15,000 to do physical study. I had it. I had a Prime Hotel when I opened here in 2000, Hampton Inn. They did physical study. I couldn't make it for 4 years. I had to change the flag in 2004. Since then, we've been Comfort Inn, so it's been working very well. I had a chance to change flag just about a year ago to Holiday Inn Express. I did physical study again myself, and it wasn't feasible, so I didn't change anything. I kept it what I have. I run a very fine hotel, okay? You can look up online everywhere, And revenue, I generate very good, if you look at that report, okay? If we get another hotel, we can't stop anybody building anything, but we will see our changes. There will be quite a bit hotel will go close the door because there is no money. There's a lot of property tax we pay. And everybody's saying it's correct, so I'm all for it. You guys make a decision, okay?
Thank you.
Kevin Patel. Could you
Good morning,
please-
Commissioners.
Could you please state your address?
My name is Govind Patel, 1641 South Main Street. I operate Nights Inn, and I lived here since 1983. I am probably the oldest among all the hoteliers currently here. 34 years plus I've been lived here. Basically, I think Patricia or Sonny they basically say almost everything what I want to say, but I'm going to say from my perspective. I've seen, when I came here in 1983, there was only 2 hotels, which is right now is called Days Inn, used to be Best Western, and the one I'm running right now used to call Royal Manor French Bien, and which is became a Days Inn for 15 years. Now it's a Nights Inn, and the 2 other hotels which do not exist anymore. The one is probably was damaged by the storm, but it could not even rebuild it again. It's because of the occupancy. The other one definitely went down because of the occupancy. Now, in 1985, there was a Econo Lodge was being built, and to protect my partners and I interest at the Royal Manor used to be called at the time, which is Nights Inn now. We had a chance to take over and protect our interests, and thinking that that's the only hotel at the exit. And we thought, well, it will do good because this is the only hotel right at the exit. We were wrong. It did not. We took us about 2.5 years to establish. We even injected our own cash to start the business. Then we converted the Royal Manor into Days Inn. We ran it for 15 years, thinking that will create some influx, people, different people coming into town. But it was a struggle. All those years. There were some years we were good, okay, but overall this was not. Then the Holiday Inn Express came. And after running that as a Holiday Inn Express 15 years, they came up with a new criteria. They could not meet that. So they changed Black to a Best Western. Then a Super 8 came, same story. It's always a struggle for the existing one when the new one comes. Then came Hampton Inn. I even had a few folks here in town told me, said, Hampton Inn in Ottawa, who's going to afford that rate? And I think Sonny can vouch that for, could not make it as a Hampton Inn. So he changed the name to Comfort Inn, kind of lower tier a little bit. Now, when I came first here in 1983 for a few years, we had quite a few events in the town going on, like in the summertime, some sports activities, which will bring the business to the hotel. There were, but 2 or 3 times, there were some draft horse sales, which will help the hotels. Poultry show. There were some, but mostly Ottawa I think, relied on a overflow from 3 directions. Lawrence, from south, from Emporia this way, from Kansas City this way. It's not that we created the business. It's the other area that created business. We were getting some overflow. So we were relying on that, but that was good. But all those 3 areas have multiple hotels now. So those overflows is gone. Some of the events are gone. We've lost a lot of events. Poultry show, draft sales, I don't even remember the others. But only thing that we have which keeps the hotel occupied is a car show, that's the only one fills the hotels. And that's 2 days in a whole, out of all year. And not even a tractor show, yes, a little bit of business. But apart from that, thing. So if the Holiday Inn Express, there is another hotel is going to be built in Gardner, Hampton Inn. So how can we attract the business in Ottawa? They're all going to get trapped 3 different directions. In $150 rate that the Holiday Inn Express newcomers is saying, who's going to afford to stay here at $150? And if that comes in here, I will be the first one to close the door. I'm ashamed to say that I'm running at 18% occupancy last month, this month of January. It's tough. So I don't think that in my experience says it's not going to create any extra business in the town, and that's going to hurt the TGT. So I think it's, Commissioner, your decision. Don't have much to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Kevin Patel.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Kevin Patel, 2331 South Cedar Street. I'm currently the front desk manager at the Econo Lodge, family business. We moved here in August, bought the property. We came here in August with the intentions of building a family, using the city of Ottawa and the hotel as a financial support to, sustain a family. With the introduction of this new hotel, that our dreams would be crushed at that point. With what everybody prior to me has already said, you have the numbers there with you. A couple comments that I would like to make. One specifically regarding the Ottawa University and the hospital. It was mentioned that we, as the hotels currently in this city, weren't able to provide the necessary resources for the hospital and Ottawa University. During the water main break, all hotels received calls from the university stating, "Hey, what are you able to do at this, at this time of need, at this time of crisis?" We all lowered our rates. More than happily welcomed the university to be able to use the resources that we provided. This past year, the 2015-2016 year, the occupancy of specifically the Econo Lodge was at about 35 to 38%. Now, the average occupancy, as Patricia stated previously, was 40.7% for the 15 to 16 year. That's 60% of rooms that are unoccupied. And it was stated to me by students from Ottawa University that they were looking at more high-end, more fancy hotels, and thus the university decided to not have students stay at the Econo Lodge the days in, the nights in. Primarily hotels were the Holiday Inn, or the Comfort Inn, the Super 8, and the Best Western, which are, the Best Western and the Comfort Inn would be considered fancy or more high-end to fulfill the students' needs. But I'm asking you, in a time of need and a time of crisis, are you looking at luxury, or are you looking at resources to provide temporary housing situations for students? And if our average occupancy was at 40%, you have 60% of rooms that could have been allocated to those students who needed housing within this community at that time of need, that the university did not utilize, stating that we did not meet the requirements or did not have those resources, when in fact we did have 60% of those resources to be used. If, like I said, in a time of crisis, you're not looking for fancy or luxurious, you're looking for resources to accommodate students in a temporary housing situation in a time of need. And in that time of need, those rates were decreased to help financially the university, in this time of need. So with the university and the city stating that we don't have the resources to provide the city and incoming guests with, hotels and rooms for guests to stay in, that is absolutely incorrect and inaccurate in my opinion. Stating that the students, bringing it on the students saying they needed a more luxurious room you know, in this type of situation, we had the necessary resources for this city and the hotels within this city itself to occupy the students in this time of need. Now, the issue with the water main break kind of overlapped with the car show weekend, and there were some issues where Sonny unfortunately had to make room for the car show guests that had previous reservations. Well, if the city of Ottawa utilized, or the Ottawa University utilized the 60% of rooms that were unoccupied throughout that time, they could have allocated their students throughout the 6 hotels that are here in this city to where there still would be room for the reservations for the car show weekend. And the students of Ottawa University would not have been relocated to a Sheraton 30, 40 miles from their location, from their university, which would in turn be an inconvenience for them to commute every day back and forth to and from to go to school, just due to the fact that they needed more fancier or more high-end rooms. So, like I said, with an average occupancy rate of 40%, overall 6 hotels, there's more than enough resources in this community for all of the students to have temporary housing within the city of Ottawa, such that there's no inconvenience for them commuting back and forth to school. The university is still in, you know, they're in the hometown, and car show revenue would not have been, would not have been affected if all resources were utilized for the right reasons, as to not be selfish to look for more high-end hotels, which the students were not paying for themselves. The university was providing those funds to have the temporary housing for the students. So if wanting a more luxurious or fancy hotel is in turn in their minds not utilizing all the resources in this city, then I don't understand. Like I stated, and like the numbers state, we have the resources to house all these students and to house all the guests coming into the city. It's a matter of, you know, knowing where to allocate those resources and how to, you know, best handle the situations. Another thing, the gentleman who would like the Holiday Inn to be built stated that building the hotel would bring in 30,000 new guests or 30,000 new people to the city. Well, without another tourist attraction or recreational facility or anything to attract guests, the 30,000 that he's stating would be new guests coming into the city would be 30,000 guests that would be taken away from the 6 hotels that already accommodate those 30,000 guests. You will not be bringing in 30,000 new tourists to the city unless there is more tourist attractions, more things to do within the city. There's just no doubt about it. If there's not more things to do, and if the transient guest tax is not used for its main purpose, which is to create recreation and tourism for the city, you will not be bringing in 30,000 new tourists to this city, unless there is a reason for them to come to this city. And building a hotel would not be a sufficient enough reason for somebody to say, hey, let me go to Ottawa. I'm here, I'm coming to check out the Holiday Inn. No, you're not. You're coming to check out the car show, and you will be staying at so-and-so hotel while you are taking part in this tourist attraction. So the transient guest tax should not be used to build the Holiday Inn because it is a lodging facility. It's not a tourist attraction in itself. The transient guest tax should be used for tourist attractions, recreation purposes, which is, you know, in true fashion should be used in that shape or form, and not as an incentive or segue to build a lodging facility. They're two different categories, and using the transient guest tax to build a lodging facility is not an appropriate way to be using such resources, such financial, you know, we're all. So another thing is, you know, it was mentioned that the meeting room is a top priority for the city, to have a meeting room in order to have, you know, meetings regarding the city, the county, that sort of thing. With Ottawa being the county seat, I I feel that the meeting room can be built in using other such resources, such as a grant from the state or that sort of thing, to be able to provide funding to build a meeting room. And the building of a meeting room should not be used as an incentive to, the building of the Holiday Inn should not be used as an incentive for this meeting room, such that if you build our meeting room, you can build our hotel. It shouldn't work that way. The meeting room is used for city purposes, can be used as recreational purposes depending on what's going on. But you cannot say, build this meeting room, then you can build our hotel. It should be, the meeting room should be grant funded, from a different entity, such that if it's tied to the city, it should have its own funding, and it should be a completely separate discussion compared to, as opposed to, the hotel being built. So, like I said, and I have some statistics here since we took over in August.
Just so, we usually cap the comment at 5 minutes. I want to, been loose on that. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to get their point of view out.
So I just want to just close with saying, the funds need to be allocated to the right places, and stating that this city, the hotels in this city weren't able to provide the necessary resources for incoming tourists, and Ottawa University and the hospitals is not in fact true, when in fact only 40% of the average rooms of all 6 hotels over the span of 365 days are only 40% occupied, when you have 60% that can be used for such cases such as emergencies, which Ottawa University did not fully utilize. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's it? All right. And, in front of us all, we also have a copy of a letter from an existing industry from ATC that expressed their support and notes that they have business visitors that come to the community and routinely house their guests outside of Franklin County, and believe the project would be an asset to the county. So,
Chair Waymeyer, I'd just like to let the commission know that I spoke with a lady from the Kansas Department of Revenue yesterday, and she had a concerned citizen call, and she was emailing Derek in regards to that, and Derek forwarded it to me with some questions, and I did contact her with some follow-up questions to her comments. It was portrayed to the state when they said that we could not do this. She indicated to me that it was portrayed that we were just going to allow this hotel to pay less. So instead of paying the 6% into the fund as required by our resolution, it was indicated to her that we were only going to have this hotel pay 3%. And that is where we would have to opt out, and we would have to start collecting our own transient guest tax if we were going to allow one hotel to pay less, because of all their reporting and stuff. There would be they would assess fees to that hotel if they didn't pay the full 6%. So that's where they're saying that we can't do this, have the hotel pay less. But I think the proposed project is not for them to pay less, is to pay the full 6% and for us to rebate them a 3%. The question that I had to her, that I reached out to her on specifically, was how do we as a county know how much we're getting from each hotel in transient guest tax? And she said there are some reports that we can receive. So I've requested to be set up so I can receive and be able to give those to you guys, so that we can know how much each of the hotels are bringing in now, so you guys could effectively see how much, that this might change, if we're using this 7% rate of change that we've been given that may affect these hotels, then we could have a hard number for you guys to make a decision on. The 7% of this hotel that's going to be in direct competition, if we see that shift, where this might potentially go. So those reports are going to be available. They're not available to us today. For whatever reason, no one in the county right now was set up to get those reports. We were just getting a cumulative report when we receive that money. So as soon as I have that, I will forward that on to you guys. If you have any additional questions that you'd like me to ask her, I'd certainly be willing to reach out to her again. And she said, definitely call if we have additional questions about where we can go with this or what the money can be used for. And one more thing I'd just like to say, it was addressed that we gave $47,800, I believe, last year to tourism services, and that was to recoup some of the money that was in reserves, as you guys remember. And so now, in effect, we have, in the transient guest tax fund account, we have a little bit of reserve in there, which we had not previously really carried any balance in there. We had given almost all of that money to tourism services for them to do as they saw fit with it. We do have a little bit of a reserve in there, but that is to maintain the building that we're required by the state. It was built under a grant, and we have to maintain the building. So we have to, they have had issues with their sewer system, and so that's there for that. Roof, siding, whatever, which we did spend some money out of that last year to do some building maintenance things that had not gotten done. So
And if
we
that's
do have
something a person from the public's interested in, I'm sure staff would be more than happy to explain. But now, Derek, do you have anything you need to get in front of us before we chew on this?
I do a couple of things. One, and to piggyback on what Janet just said, if I recall, when we were going through the budgeting process with the Visitors Information Center, Inc., we saw that they had a large reserve. And this board felt, and if I'm mistaken, correct me, that as stewards of those tax dollars, it would be irresponsible to let them continue to build that reserve. And so we gave them less with the expectation that they spend down their existing reserve, which they did in fact do. And as Janet said, that gave us an amount to use for capital improvements out there. With regard to the TGT and what it can be used for, and several people spoke to this, and I commend all of you for your public comment. I think you've given the board a tremendous amount to think about, and this is a very, very important policy decision. And the fact that you're here speaking, the common theme I've heard is community, and I commend you for that, because I think we should all care about our community, and I think that's why most of us are in this room. Having said that, there's a difference between a difficult policy decision and a difficult legal decision. This is not an illegal use of TGT money. I've spoke with the state, I've spoke with our bond counsel, I've interpreted the statute with my own legal training. This is not illegal. Kevin Patel brought up good points about why you might not want to use the TGT for this purpose, and he did accurately point out that TGT money needs to be used to increase tourism and recreation and increase overnight stays. Now, I would offer that whether or not this happens to be the case, it can be feasibly argued that adding another hotel would cause people who wouldn't have otherwise come to any given event, like a car show. It would cause them to now come and stay in that hotel. And that's really all we need. And whether or not that happened, we don't have to answer that question. The TGT statute is designed to keep boards from, for instance, using TGT money to buy Chief Robbins a new ambulance, or Jim Hague road graders to road grade the roads. Like, it's not, certainly hotels and the potential effect that they could have on the community would be a legal use. Now, whether or not you want to use it for that, again, is a very important policy decision that is in your discretion to decide. So with that, I would turn it over to you.
Okay, well, does from everything we've heard, does that spur any questions? Do we need to have the presenter back up to ask him? All right.
Mike Works again, Lincoln, Nebraska? Yes. Could I do just a quick response to a couple of things that were brought up? The idea that the 30,000 people aren't going to be new people, I realized that I did not point out one of the numbers that is extremely important, and it's on the occupancy, ADR, and reservation sheet. It's also on the Spurrier Consulting letter, but it is specifically that last number, and it's the system-wide Holiday Inn Express reservation contribution. And that just says that in Holiday Inn Expresses across the country, the contribution that comes specifically from Holiday Inn Express members and their distribution system, like calling into the IHG number and saying, I want to stay in a hotel near Ottawa, Kansas, 63%, 62.9% of that comes directly from them. Those people aren't being serviced at all in Ottawa, Kansas right now. And so that's a very important number that I didn't point out clearly enough the first time. And so when you say that, when we're talking about whether the room nights are coming from existing hotels or they're coming from new sources, that's probably the most important number. That doesn't even count the people that drive by on I-35, as Rick pointed out, and say, oh, there's an Express. I like staying at Express as we pull off the road. That's just people that are actually booking rooms over the reservation system. So 63% of our total amount of revenue coming into this hotel right at the top, we would expect to come from that system. And so, okay, that'd be the first thing I would say. There are low occupancies. If you look at the STAR report, there are low occupancies. And Abby and Ms. Spurrier speaks clearly to that on page 1, number 2, and talks about the low occupancy rates as a factor of the fact that you have a lot of hotel rooms in town that are economy brand hotels. And that's what it are. They're older hotels, and as you know, hotels slowly work their way down the ladder, and something that was, and we've talked about this, something that was a Best Western becomes an Econo Lodge. Something that's an Econo Lodge becomes a Knights Inn, and that's just the normal process of how hotels work through their aging process. And so you have a lot of economy-rated hotel rooms that people aren't pulling off the road to stay at, and that's why your occupancy levels are low. And Ms. Spurrier speaks clearly to that. And then the only other benefit that we didn't really talk about, we might have talked about it last week, was we will have 350 in a hotel of this size. Our normal payroll would be someplace between $350,000 and $400,000 a year. And I have no reason to expect that wouldn't be the same here. So we are creating another additional $350,000 to $400,000 of payroll in town. In addition, I think we did talk about the fact that I think we would be increasing the wages that are being paid at other hotels. Sorry. Thank you.
Well, I think, my opinion is we've kind of lost track. I've heard a lot of comments about we don't need a motel. I want you to vote no on this. First off, we're not here to vote yes for it or no for it. All we're here for is to decide if we're going to use any transient guest tax. I think a whole lot of this has been talked about is something the city of Ottawa needs to be dealing with, because it's their call, basically, what comes in the city of Ottawa. We're not here to regulate competition or anything like that. We're just here to talk about the transient guest tax, and if we feel that we want to use any of it for an incentive. So I think a lot of that is kind of, we've been listening to, that really isn't in our position to deal with. It's going to be more of the city's position to deal with what comes into their town. I mean, if you start talking about competition, this is not our call, but we just got a new Freddy's a while back. A lot of people was happy to see a new Freddy's. I mean, it could have been stepped up if we're doing this for everybody, saying we don't need another fast food place. We've got 4 or 5 now. We're not letting them come. Or if a new restaurant wants to come town, nope, we got other restaurants in town. We're not letting them come. I mean, I don't think that's our position at all. My question, you said the last time, in York, Nebraska, you built one of these a couple of years ago, is that correct?
Correct, in 2014.
Well, I actually got a call from a city person in York yesterday. It was something unrelated to this. But as we were talking, I asked him if they had transient guest tax, and he said they call it something else.
Yeah.
Same thing, but they call it something else. I said, did you use some of that when you put this Holiday Inn Express? And he said, no, we didn't. And he also told me the size of their town, which is smaller than Ottawa. So he said they were on a freeway. I don't know what the freeway is there.
Yeah, Interstate 80.
So anyway, and we're also on a freeway. my feeling on this is if this town is able to be a smaller town, put incentives together, and you still built there without using any of their transient guest tax. And I'll tell you, and I don't know his name, I didn't get his name.
That's fine.
But he made the comment, we have several motels, and we didn't think it was right to use the transient guest tax when other motels aren't getting the same break.
So let me, if I could answer real quick.
Sure.
You're absolutely correct about everything you just said. In Nebraska, transient guest tax can't be rebated back. It's just not something that Nebraska allows towns to do. So it was never an ask that we ever asked there because we just couldn't do it. Number two, we built this in 2014. We actually built it in 2013, opened in 2014. I'd be happy to share those construction numbers with you. But our construction costs then, if it was an old prototype hotel, they don't have, that's not what we could build today in Ottawa. And so it's not the same hotel we'd be building you here. It's a nice hotel, don't get me wrong. But the cost for construction it's night and day. It's two completely different numbers, and I'd be happy to share that with you. And that's the gap that we're really making up here, is you're helping us make up that gap between what it costs to build today versus what it cost in 2014. And I don't want to give you a number because I'd be off, but it's a true 30% difference to us in what it's going to cost to build in Ottawa than what it costs there, not to mention the additional cost of the road and the other stuff that we're doing so that the rest of that can be developed for Franklin County and Ottawa, not to our benefit, but to the cities and the county's benefit. So
That's just kind of where my comments and where I'm kind of at is I feel that the city of Ottawa has a lot of incentives at their disposal if they want to use them. And I'm not positive that the use of the transient guest tax is something we need to do in this situation. That's all I have.
could I ask James Altman to come up and speak, both on behalf of the project and on behalf of the city?
I guess we heard from him the other day. Do you have any follow-up information, James?
James Altman, Director of Franklin County Development Council. Just to answer Commissioner Howard's question about what the city's bringing to the table, I've been involved with these talks from the start. We have sat down with the city in regards to this project, and there are going to be things that the city's going to be able to provide. Definitively, we cannot tell you at this point what it is because this is the first step of the process of figuring out what is going to be needed to take to facilitate this project. This request will, in essence, help decide, first of all, the location. Is it going to be on the old Taylor Brothers site? Is it going to be over east of the Comfort Inn? Is it going to be in Ottawa at all, depending on what the commission comes to? Once a location has been specified by Mike that, hey, according to the information that I have, we feel that we can move forward with this site right here, whatever one it may be, then they will go ahead and take that application to the city. And the city does have tools at its disposal. They were explained at the last joint luncheon this last month. As far as TIF financing, as far as CID, Commercial Improvement District. Those are things that are at their disposal, and those are things that they are willing and able to evaluate this project on and bring to the table for this. Can I tell you exactly what it's going to be? Is it going to be one or the other? Is it going to be a combination of the two? We just don't know yet because this is kind of the first puzzle piece to figure out what exactly those costs are going to be. Because as Mike has said, there's a huge difference in cost when you're talking the two different sites. Because on one site you have to completely put in an entire new street and cul-de-sac. On the other site you don't. So there's major infrastructure needs dependent on the site. So that's going to have a huge effect on it. It's something that they're moving forward with their process to do that. Even at their city commission meeting tonight, I believe there's an item on the agenda in regards to it. So, they are bringing something to the table. They have been at the table for these discussions. Now, just to kind of also clarify some things as far as my role in the process is, when you're looking at this project, strictly from a community development standpoint, the City of Ottawa does not have a preference necessarily over where this project ends up, whether it ends up on the Taylor Brothers side or whether it ends up, east of the Comfort Inn. Obviously, they want it to end up in Ottawa if possible, if we can make the project work. But when you're talking strictly from a community development, as far as, site plan and zoning and floodplain issues and all that stuff, they have a community development department that handles that just like the county does. They make sure that regardless of which site that we're looking at, can the project be facilitated on that site? Night and day stuff, will the building that they're proposing fitting here? Is the, zoning correct for it? My role in this process has been economic development, not community development. It is what the Franklin County partners with our organization for. It is what the City of Ottawa partners with our organization for. And so my job is to look at this from an economic development standpoint, not a community development standpoint. And really, my role kind of gets, in a project like this, gets broken out into a couple different aspects where I evaluate the project when it initially comes to me, when Mike called me up and said, hey, we're looking at doing this. Is this something that I even bring to the table to evaluate with the respective commissions? Then I help facilitate the discussion. I help facilitate the meetings. I help, bring all the information together. And then the last piece of it is educating and counseling you guys, letting you know that from my experience, from just professional economic development work, this is the standard, this is not the standard, and give you all that information. And so, my job is to help you make the most informed decision that you guys can. I know that there's been a lot of emotion in the room today, and that's understandable. But at the end of the day, my job is to help take that emotion out of it and look at the cold, hard numbers and the cold, hard data that has been provided to you about, the amount of business that is going to increase within Franklin County. In all honesty, this is not about a hotel project, in my opinion. This is about a development project that's to grow the economy. And so it's you can look at it either short-sighted or have a long-term vision with it. And so the last thing I'm going to say is that this is an opportunity that doesn't come around often. I feel that the city would echo my sentiment, and this is the farthest that we've come to having this site developed. There's no guarantee that we will get this close anytime in the near future to have this site developed again, so.
Thank you, Jay. Go ahead.
If I were to understand this correctly, what the city has to offer in their incentives would be to recoup the cost of the developer for infrastructure that would need to be put in place, those utilities and those streets. Is that correct?
Depending on which tool you're looking at, yes. With TIF financing, there are certain eligible expenses under which TIF financing can go back to recoup costs for. There's also the CID district, which can be established, which has some other costs that can be recouped underneath the CID statute. And so depending on which, it could be one, could be the other, it could be a combination of the two. There are certain things that can be recouped underneath that.
And I'm certainly not trying to put either of you on the spot, but I'm sure both of you understand that I have got to represent my board. You and I have met several times, and I think at every meeting you've given me the indication that irregardless of what the board chooses to do today, a Holiday Inn is coming into this community. Now, we've talked about, is that on the east side? Is that on the Taylor Brothers side? And it's been my understanding that TGT money has been requested at the Taylor Brothers site because of the cost of the infrastructure that would need to be placed to put a hotel there. Whereas on the east side, it wouldn't be necessary because the infrastructure already exists. And I guess, and now today, Mr. Works is indicating that he's going to maybe have to go back to the drawing board. And then a second question would be, you talk about growing the economy, and I guess what I would like for the board to hear is gonna do it, whether it's on the east side of Maine or the west side. So if you two could speak to that.
Yeah, that's more me than you. And I guess the answer to that is, I guess is no. That what you've been told, is, at least what you've heard, is incorrect. We are still considering whether or not we're coming to Ottawa as a whole. It is not a primary city. It's not a Wichita. It's not a Kansas City. It is on I-35, and that's what's exciting about it. So we're still considering. We have not spent the money to do real design of the building. We haven't spent the money we've secured the franchise, but we haven't paid all the money to that. So we're at the very beginning stages of what we're doing for development. So we are still looking to see what, the incentive package from the city and the incentive package from the county is really the difference in what we're going to do or not going to do. East side, other side, because really the city and the TIF package is what needs to help with the infrastructure side of things. I'm not here asking for the TGT and help on the TGT for the infrastructure. That's something we have to do, but the TIF side of things is going to help. Just as a quick point, as part of the TIF process and what we're working with the city, one of the things that I know has been asked for and has been given in the past is a city sales tax and a county tax rebate. I don't know if it's a rebate or a kickback, I don't remember which. We're not asking for the county sales tax portion of that as part of our process with the other side of the TIF thing. So just so we're clear on that, we're not asking for your 1.6%, I think is what it is, right? So that's another piece of it. But no, we have not decided that we're absolutely coming. That is not true, and we're not so far into this yet. I think we talked about it. The timing is so important to us. We're hoping that we can get the first step of this positively figured out, whether it's a time frame difference or whatever that is. We can figure that out so that we can then proceed with the city, proceed with which site we're going to, and so we can get those drawings and start that process and start spending the real money as soon as possible.
So the, I guess, offer in front of us right now is a 3% rebate for 20 years?
10 years.
10 years?
Yes.
And that, I guess the other part of that I'm trying to understand now, obviously we're not doing this all for a meeting room. Is that something that's important to you, or it kind of sounds like in our talks that was something you added to make it more attractive from our point of view, seeing that?
That's absolutely true. It's not a huge benefit
generator.
to us at all. I mean, I think it would get used after talking to James and other folks in town. I think it's going to get used. I think it could be important to the city, but it's not something that's a moneymaker to us. Okay. It's going to cost us money to have to operate the meeting space at that size.
In recognition of the fact that we would potentially be giving public funds to construct this, would you be willing to allow the county, the city, the school district, the chamber to use that conference room at no cost?
We would. As long as it isn't already being used that day, we would be absolutely willing to do that. Yes, as part of it. And my attorney would probably kick me, but if it's a question of whether or not we're increasing the transient guest tax or not, I would also say that if we ever got to a point where the transient guest tax is less than the base amount that you're receiving now, that we wouldn't receive our rebate, if that makes sense. I mean, I'd be willing to state that too. If that could be written into the agreement, I'm fine with that as well. We just don't believe that's the case. We believe we're going to create extra TGG for you.
What else off the cuff are you willing to
Yeah, I know. That's about as far as I can go today.
Okay.
See, I have a different feeling about this. You just made the comment that this is not a primary site. It is by I-35. Well, I spent 20-some years with the police department. I know how much traffic goes up and down I-35. In my opinion, this right there next to it is a gold mine for your company, is the way I'm looking at it.
We certainly hope so.
And I think the company can do it. I think there will be some incentives, like I said, from the city. I'm just not sure I'm on board for the transient guest tax being one of them.
I guess I'm just a little bit on the opposite side of that, because I really see that Ottawa is part of the county. I see that we are looking at development. And if we're going to develop the industrial park, and those people are going to come and look, what's Wells Ottawa got, what's in the city, we may then make that look nice and have whatever amenities they may be wanting. My only concern is how much is the transient guest tax going to change? And if we're going to be able to, and you just made a heck of an offer, if you're saying you're going to make sure it doesn't go down any of that, because I'm all in favor of a 2% for 5 years or something like that. I'm okay with that if it's on the west side and if we are getting a meeting room. Those are my only two concerns, because then we're going to be developing Ottawa. We're going to bring in more rooms for other motels because we can increase our tourism money, our funds for the tourism. We're not going to lose that money by doing something else. And I hope the news media is getting it correct that we're talking only the funds from your motel, from that hotel that's generated. That percent of those funds that go back for whatever years we can come up with, whatever. If we want to roll the dice and say, oh yeah, they'll come anyway, I'm okay with that. And I agree with Rick on the competition. We're not here to regulate that. Bring in 50 motels. If you guys want to gamble and think you can make a living, go for it. But if we are going to look at Ottawa development and what we can do down there in that part of this entrance to the city, make it more attractive for businesses, for other groups to put on some type of entertainment or whatever that might bring people to motels. We ought to be able to try to fill every motel.
Is there a possible way that once you had recouped your cost, let's say this does much better than what you put on paper for us, and you recouped your cost in 5 years, that you could come back and say, I've recouped my cost and I don't need those funds now, and I'd like to.
Could we cap the gross rebate?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. Is there a way that that could be included? I mean, we're looking at total dollars, right?
Right, correct.
And if you got to your total dollars to gap finance what you need to construct this, everything on top of that would be a bonus to you.
Agreed.
That I don't think would be in the best interest of the taxpayers.
I think
Do you agree with that?
I think that's very fair.
I don't know
yes.
I don't know how we work that out, but I would like to see if we can work that into the contract and negotiations myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's reasonable.
Do you have that number?
Based on our projections for the hotel, we were someplace between a total amount, not a net present value, but a total amount collected over the 10 years of between $500,000 and $600,000. It's in that range someplace. And we could get to, pick a number, if we get to that $500,000 in 6 years and we cap it at that point, I've got no problem with that. I think that's a totally fair suggestion.
That makes your project desirable when you market it eventually, so it meets your end goal, and it also doesn't leave an open check on our end.
Correct.
What are your thoughts, Roy?
I wanted to hear that figure about what it's going to cost per unit to build this.
About $115,000 a key. We're building in Chadron, small town, a little bit smaller than here, and it's costing us $111,000 a key. We're building another one in Ogallala. It's about $108,000 a key. So I mean, very similar numbers. We've got additional costs here that we don't have there.
That's about what, $8,500,000 to build it.
Yes, rough. I mean, a little bit more than that. We'd be right around 9 total. And we're still considering, like I said, we haven't finished the plans yet, so we're still considering 80 to 85 rooms. So that obviously changes the effect. The meeting room, right now, if we're talking about meeting space, we're taking out a number of rooms and turning that into meeting space, and that's a legitimate, it's $150,000 to $200,000 cost depending on the AV equipment that we end up having to put in there. Because right now I'm not putting any AV equipment in, we're just renting it for a boardroom. But if we're going to do a bigger room, we need to have legitimate, AV equipment.
Now, my concerns is that, are we setting a precedent for everybody that comes down the turnpike for using transient guest tax?
That's fair. My argument would be that we're creating our own tax. In this case, nobody else would actually be doing that.
I understand that, but I still feel it might be setting a precedent.
And Roy, I think that is certainly a valid concern, because I think while this project may very well lead to increased total collections, projects that might be proposed down the line very well might not. But that is where I think it's incumbent upon the board to very clearly state, we will consider these on a case-by-case basis, and we'll evaluate each project on its own merits. So I would state that you're certainly not legally binding yourself, and I'm not sure you're politically binding yourself to automatically commit TGT money to every project that comes in. I think that's where you guys earn your money. You evaluate
So, since everybody's talked, I feel like we might have a little bit of a consensus, or at least grounds for we can put together a motion. I'd like to kind of recap what,
Well, I guess that before a
If-
motion gets put out there,
I'd also want-
we think about that. It's my understanding, what you've said today, and your attorney can jump right in at any juncture. We're still talking about a 3% rebate for 10 years. We're talking about the current Taylor Brothers site with the conference room.
A site on that west development?
Yes.
Not the east development, how's that?
Yeah.
Okay,
fair enough.
yes.
We're talking about a room that all local government schools could use at no cost to them. And then most importantly, if your total TGT collections in any one of those 10 years don't increase the total amount, you don't get your rebate. And then,
I just want to make clear, over the base amount as it sits today?
sure.
Okay,
And then we're gonna cap the amount at whatever needed to recoup your investment in the property. Is that, what you all understood to be the current terms?
I think it's important, and something we'd mentioned before is committing to that minimum $10 an hour wage on your project, which you said something you do anyways.
That's fine,
But
yes.
I think it's important, and it helps people on both spectrums, the developer and
I
the
have one
hourly
more
worker.
question. Is there a priority for you to have the money come in quicker at the front? Or, I mean, is it, if it, 2%, I mean, if we're gonna cap it or whatever else, I didn't know if it was more important for you to have, hey, the more money up front the first few years, or if it's spread out, it doesn't matter at all.
no, absolutely makes more sense to have it up front. We're expending all that money up front.
Right,
It'd
okay,
be helpful
all
to
right.
have it back early,
All
sure.
right. Okay.
With regard to motion, because we're going to have to put an agreement together. And that agreement gets tricky because if you'll recall, bond counsel, who was here last week, talked about potentially trying to tie this in with the city's TIF
Sure.
agreement, and there's a lot of moving parts there. So I think if you wanted to make a motion today, you could make a motion authorizing me to begin negotiating with Mr. Works and his counsel on putting this agreement together, but ultimately, the agreement's gonna have to come back in front of the board for you to review and then make a motion to actually approve.
But the terms would,
So all we need to
within it
do is
would be what
determine if
we.
we're gonna use transient guest tax or not. That's the
Well,
main
I mean,
question.
there's details we want them to work into this agreement.
Yeah, but we're not even worried about the details if we don't have three people at least willing to spend transient guest tax.
Which is why I think the
Yeah, I think
motion
that's
is
the first thing.
authorizing me to begin
Yes.
negotiation. That is inherent that you all believe that we should use that if there are three of you that.
So you're negotiating the 10 years is what you're,
I think that would be a discussion that, we could potentially have if that is something that the board feels needs to be negotiated.
Well, I think we're negotiating here. We're trying to find needs in common, and we're authorizing you to, I guess, put these details, which you just recapped, into an agreement, and then we would ultimately, approve that agreement, but we need to determine if there's interest to go down that road. So what Derek kind of captured there, what he just went over, would you be, if we could put together an agreement, would you be willing to commit to do this project? Is there another thing down the road where you're gonna go to the city and say, hey, I won't come if this doesn't happen?
We obviously have been having preliminary talks with the city for 9 months now about this. I can't say that there's an understanding that we completely understand what the city incentive is going to be either. I think we have a decent idea, and if what the city has basically talked about to this point comes through, then yes, we would commit to the project. But I can't say today, if you say yes and let's negotiate this and we get this done in 2 weeks, that we're absolutely coming forward because your 3% for 10 years isn't enough to bridge that gap, or you're not even close, to be honest. So
Without TIF,
there's a TIF or an abatement or something, and the city's got to figure out what they're willing to do on that side, and we've been talking about that for a long time. But it's not settled by any means. You're the first step. But I don't know what to say other than we want to come, right? And this is the first step. This is the first pin. If we knock this one down, then we go to the city and get that done next.
So I don't understand, why are we the first step? Why is it the city not the first step to give everything that they got and then come to us, and so we need just made up the difference from what they gave them?
Generally speaking, it all should have happened at about the same time period. I don't know if you know what's going on with the road over there, but they've either got to get the land for the road dedicated, or they've got to do something more drastic to get that land dedicated so we can actually build the road for them. So that's just taking way longer than anyone hoped. James, is that fair? Yeah. I'd commit to continuing to work on it and hoping to get it done soon, yes.
And I think, and just speaking briefly with Mike's counsel, and I understand this, I think the motion would be a motion to pledge TGT money on those terms pending basically working out the details contractually. So you're basically stating, yeah, we're going to pledge this provided we can, all the things we've discussed, we can get wrapped up in a nice agreement. So
That makes sense to me. The only detail to work out, I guess, would be that for 2% thrown around, obviously 3 is what you're asking, and there was talk about negotiating that during our last meeting, and that's still out there, or...
Well, if Richard's suggestion is a cap, then I'd rather leave it at 3%, and we can hopefully
That
get to
makes
that
sense.
cap sooner than later. Otherwise, I'm afraid it's going to drag on for a long time, and we'll never get to that cap number.
And that's fine too, as long as that balance of the whatever our normal is, doesn't drop down, if we're protecting that
Okay.
in that same deal, then I don't care how quick you get it either.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm good with
So
that.
do you want to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but do you want to recap maybe where we're at, and then we can think about making that motion to pledge to enter into negotiation
Yeah,
contract?
I have several things here. I have a 3% rebate for 10 years. I have a minimum $10 wage for all work on the project. I have a use of I have a commitment to a conference room. I have a commitment to a side in the general Taylor Brothers area on the west side of the road. I've got a commitment that the county, the chamber, the city, USD 290, and any other local government entity that
Taxing entity.
taxing entity use the conference rooms for free. I've got the provision that if the total TGT collections aren't increased, then this developer does not get the rebate, which I think insulates from your concern. And then I've got a cap on the TGT money at the total amount that he needs to recoup his investment. And that's really what, I'm gonna need that info. So
Right.
that I can give that to, we're really gonna need tight concrete numbers there.
And I think I would just show you what our projection was, which I can give to you immediately, for the 10 years, and we can just use that as the basis for the cap.
But it's capped at 10 years regardless of what total we get to at 10
Absolutely,
years.
yeah,
And
good
as
point.
you said, just because there has been some misconception, I think, it is just a 3% rebate with those conditions on the Holiday Inn, not any other hotels within the community.
All right.
Thank you.
So what would a motion look like?
The motion would be to pledge TGT funds for this project pending a finalized contract that is inclusive of the terms we just discussed.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we pledge transient guest tax funds for this project under the stipulations that we've talked about, and that a final contract be presented to the board that would indicate that would be the way they would be used.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
I'm going to vote no. I don't think it's going to be a deal maker one way or the other, or deal breaker about this much investment for a hotel. So I'm voting no. I don't think it's appropriate for using transient guest tax for this project.
Commissioner Howard?
I vote no.
Chair Whitmire?
Yes. All right.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you for your time. Yeah, it has been a while. How about we recess for 5 minutes, come back at 10:15 as the clock on the wall reads. All right, we're back in session after our recess. We'll get back to our items of business. The one listed is number one on your agenda that's been distributed is to discuss and consider for approval December 2016 EMS activity reports and year-end reports for the 2016 calendar.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Nick.
Like you said, this morning I'm going to talk to you about our December adjustment report, and then I'm going to go into the 2016 year-end report and give you numbers from that. Commissioner Oglesby pointed out that on our call to date, there's one number discrepancy. I don't know which one's the correct one, if it's 39 or 38. When you start adding stuff on Excel, it could happen. So, with that being said, in December we did run 303 responses, average of 9.77 calls. The calls to date, we ran 3,538 or 39 calls, bringing us to 334 more calls than we ran the previous year. Revenue stayed really nice throughout the whole year. I know with the increase in responses, we had an increase in some revenues of $81,726.42, bringing us to a total of $1,098,555.24 for the year. Like I said, this is the first year we broke $1 million, and we have worked really hard with our billing processes, with our reports, working with the insurance companies to get that way. With larger deposits, we will have adjustments that are larger. As we can see on there, your Medicare adjustment was $24,000, the Medicaid adjustment's $18,000, and then it kind of dwindles down from there for a total of $48,099.67. We did send $10,937.98 to the state sell-off program, $5,056.40 to Midwest Collections, and had a total fees of $159,466. Move-ups of 26 throughout December. Since we're going to go into a lot of detail in the year end, I'm just going to jump to page 5, which is the December report. The December report, we did transport 220 of the 303 to the hospital. We only had one transfer back to a nursing home. We had 69 total refusals for a total refusal rate of 20%, or 20.97%. Is there any questions on the December one that I can talk about?
The mission statement's nice. Is it new or just something you just started putting in there?
What's that?
The mission statement for the organization?
The mission statement, I always put that in the beginning of our our year-end report, just
Okay.
because it talks about what our mission is, and it gives you guys a...
I thought you were going to tell me it was in there every month, and I just never saw it.
No, that's the end of the December report, and then I can go into the
The
year-end
year-end.
if there's no questions on
Okay.
December. I just tied it all together instead of having two different things to talk about. So you can see our mission statement. What we're going to talk about in the 2016 activity report is number of transports. We're going to talk about total township response numbers, receiving facilities, revenues, and our call type report. You can see on the trend line on 9, our call volume, our numbers are just continuing to go up. When I took over in 2006, we were at 2512, and now we're up to 3538. So call volume is steadily increasing. On page 10, that just gives us a good overall look since 2013. I can tell you I've got these tracked back to 2000 if that chart's busy, so I just broke it down to the most pertinent last 4 years. You can see we're staying pretty steady in our percentages of our townships, but if you look to the numbers, we're seeing great increases in the numbers. So we're still spreading our calls out pretty good throughout the county. We're just getting increased calls in locations like South Ottawa. You can see our call volumes have steadily went up. North Ottawa, the call numbers have steadily went up over the last 4 years. Franklin Township, numbers have steadily went up. Pomona stayed pretty steady. There was a little bit of a rise in 2016, but the LOH, which surrounds Ottawa, is kind of just pretty much steady. So you can look at those and see our growth and where we're at. I will tell you, we have seen more transfers coming out of Ransom, so those we'll talk about here in a little while. On page 11 is our call types. We break down medical emergencies, sick calls, car wrecks, transfers, and throughout the whole process. On our percentages, our percentage of medical emergencies went down the last 2 years, and if you look at transfers, they've went up. Medicare used to pay for transfers that were handled emergent. So if you had somebody that was in the hospital, they called for a transfer, and we responded immediately like we do to handle those. You could bill those as medical emergencies, and the rate of return was better. Medicare has made some adjustments where now all transfers have to be billed as an unscheduled transfer. By doing that, we've had to make some adjustments in our stuff. We're still getting the same payment we were. We're still getting the same of that. We just have to document them different in our reports. So that's why you can see the call fluctuation of the transfers going up and medical emergencies going down. The only time we do bill medical emergency out of the hospital if it's a transfer, if it's a heart attack or a stroke, in which we will have policies in which we will run emergent to the hospital because these are time-critical diagnoses and run emergent to another facility. So that's kind of how the guidelines are set and what we follow. Sick calls, most of those are patients who are lift assist. We pick them up off the floor. We get there. There's really little wrong with them, so we deal with that. One thing I would like to point out, one of the things of our community paramedicine position we really wanted to focus on was this one. I don't know if, we only had it for a year, so we can't judge it, but we have seen a decrease in those from 5% down to 3.9%. So that could be us getting out there and talking to some of these people. Also, we are working on a very good fall prevention program this year that I'm excited to get rolled out. Like I talked about the percentage, you get down to the graph below that when you can see medical emergency is as far as the numbers are continuing to rise. And the number of transfers are continuing to rise. So on page 12, call time report, what we really look at here is these are the number of times that we're the busiest. And I did put quite a few in there, so it's kind of a tough one to read, but you can look at the dark blue line, and at 1 o'clock is our peak call time. That also is the peak time that the hospital transfers patients. That's normally after the doctors are in there, see them, and decide they need to be transferred. 1 o'clock, we don't schedule anything except for calls because it's that kind of a day. But you can see from about 8 o'clock till about 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, we're pretty steady, and then it kind of drops off a little bit. On page 13, that's our year-end call stuff. And I'm going to guess by looking at this one, our call volume for the year was 3,539, just because this one I know they're real accurate when I keep up to date on this one a lot. We transported 2,421 patients to hospitals. We're going to break down these a little more in each page. I'll just go over the gist of them. Nursing homes, residents, we transported 40 patients. We had 26 patients, or 26, those are like special charge standby, stuff like that we did from the EMS department. And we flew one patient out. As you guys can remember when I took over, or some of you can remember in 2006 when I took over, we were flying 40-something patients a year. And that was a big push. We can do the same stuff in the back of the truck and have proven in a better, faster amount of time. So we've really seen a decrease. That one there was a lengthy extrication down by Williamsburg. So we had a total of 687 refusals, which brings us to the lowest refusal rate we've had in the last few years of 19%. So we're doing a good job getting these patients transported and taken care of. To really break those numbers down, on page 14, that gives you all the hospitals we transported to, dropped off. We transported 1,611 patients to Ransomwell Hospital. So 66% of our transports went to Ransom. 506 of our patients went to Olathe, and then it dwindles down from there. On the next page, the only thing I really highlighted on that next page was that Lifestar was we only flew one patient out. On page 16, when we're talking about refusal rates, the things that we use for refusals is our actual medical refusal, motor vehicle accident where we arrive, which we're called and we don't transport. Diabetic no transports. As you guys can remember, we've talked about what we were going to do with diabetic no transports, and we wanted to give the opportunity for this community education position to really reach out. We were doing, I believe, somewhere in the ballpark of 40 some a year, and we've seen that kind of decrease too. So hopefully we can see that continuing to trend with that. And the last one is lift assist. Lift assist, you know, we had 134 last year, but if you look at the previous years, we had more than that. On page 17, that gives you a picture from 2004 to 2016. And I only did the hospitals because I think it's important to see what we're doing with our local community and how many we're keeping here. I highlighted the main hospitals we go to: Overland Park, KU, Lawrence, Olathe, and Ransom. If you follow along and you look at the way the communities kind of went, in 2004, we had a total call volume of 2,304, and we brought 1,054 of those here. You look at 2010, when they kind of went through their changes over there, we had 2,739 calls, and we only brought 976 here. And now, in 2016, we had 3,500 calls, and we brought 1,611 here. So we're seeing a big uptrend. What we are seeing, though, with bringing some of these patients is we're bringing more critical patients, sicker patients, trauma patients, that stuff, and they are having to ship some of those out because they may not have some of the specialty resources. But, you know, the hope is with this, they can identify the needs of what they want or what they're going to have, so we can start keeping more of those here. So that's kind of why we're seeing those numbers. We anticipated some of that when they brought in the Level 4 Trauma Center and that.
Board certified docs for
What's
the,
that?
and the board
Yeah.
certified docs for the
So the board
emergency.
certified docs are able to treat them and then getting the admissions here and having the specialty resources to keep them long-term. And there are discussions, I know we talk about the stroke and that kind of stuff, and some of those strokes may be able to be kept here, and I know Matt and them are working on that real hard. Pickup locations, just a good picture of where our pickup locations are. Most of our calls come out of residents. The second most of our calls come out of Ransom Memorial. We had 588 calls that we picked up. Those were either going to other facilities or going home, nursing homes, that kind of stuff. Which we really did look at that real hard in 2014 before we got the board certified doctors, that kind of stuff. There were 382, and now we've seen an increase in that one. Like I said, I'm just going to be interested to see how that trends as they continue to grow over there. Jumping on to page 19, this is a revenue report, and it basically shows you what our AR is. We carry about $270-some thousand a month on the books. Our current charges that we charged for was $1,912,014.30. We had collections of $1,098,555.24. Adjustments, which are pretty much mandatory for Medicare and Medicaid, are our biggest ones, of $641,671.44. We did send $223,838.95 to collections. And the add-ins is money that comes back to us. So when we send stuff to collections, it goes out of our AR. That's not stuff we carry. If we did, we'd have a lot of money, and we'll talk about that a little bit, sitting on our books. So once it gets sent to collections, it comes out of our books, shows us sent to collections. If we get paid, it adds back in. So that's where your add-ins come in. So as of January 1st, when we started a new year, we had $301,053 sitting in our AR. On page 20, it breaks down each year of our total that we sent out in bills, our total collected, our total write-off, and you look at the total collection rate. I want to talk a smidgen about the collection rate because there's two ways of doing your collection rate, and I figured this one all encompassing. So you take the $1,900,000, you divide the collection rate to that, and that comes out at $57,000. That does not take into account of our mandatory adjustments. So if you take the $1,900,000, subtract the $641,000, and then you divide our collections, we're at about 87-88%, which is really good for what we can actually bill for. So when you look at these are all encompassing numbers, and the reason I like to look at them is it does show that we're sending a ton more. We're due to our increase in revenues, we are having to take a lot more write-offs, and that kind of points it out. The other thing is our collection, sending people to collections. In 2007, 14% of our stuff went to collections. We've been focusing on trimming that down. Our practice is what we can do. And trim that down to 11% went to collections out of $1 million, or $1.9 million. That's not too bad. What isn't really pretty is, in a total since 2007, when we started documenting our state set-off, we spent $1,600,000 to the state collection program. To date, since we've been doing that, we've only gotten $298,483 back. So we're only getting about an 18% collection rate out of using that service, which we are a taxing entity, so going after people, is controversy that way. But I wanted to give you guys a good picture of what our percentage of that, when we talk about what we sent in. We switched over to Midwest Collections as our collection service we use for no social security numbers, out of county, that kind of stuff. Hard to collect debt is what that is. So we have sent them in 2016, we sent 56,000 to them. We got back 2,427 for 4%. So when you're thinking about revenues, that kind of stuff, that kind of shows you in the long run what we're talking about throughout the year. That pretty much concludes what I've got. Any questions on those numbers that we can talk about, or if you want to know more about?
Go ahead.
We use Lifestar, where do they go?
What's that, sir?
Lifestar, what hospital do they fly to?
It just depends on what it is. If we use Lifestar, they're going to fly to, if it's a trauma, they're going to probably go to a level 1 trauma center, so it's going to be KU. Or level 2, they may go to Overland Park, or they may go back up to Topeka to Stormont Vale.
I know refusals was something that about 2 years ago you pointed out as a goal to get down, so good job accomplishing that and getting it down to way lower than it used to be.
We were running, I think, 24%, something like that, when we really started focusing on it.
Good job, I guess, using your current resources to deal with this huge volume that you had this year. And this is something been good for several years, but still good as your protocols, which results in much better patient outcomes. Something you do a great job of, and that's why you were Service of the Year a few years ago, and you're still doing a great job. So,
the one thing I do want to point out real quick, and it's important because I did have the opportunity yesterday to go down to Butler County and picked up the Tahoe, and while we were down there, we visited with Butler County, the rescue squad they have down there, because I know I talked to you guys a little bit about that. And down in that area, they're getting growth from Wichita over into Andover and that stuff, and their full-time fire departments are picking up some of the load. But volunteers for what has been argued one of the best rescue squads, volunteer rescue squads in the state, is starting to feel the pressure of volunteers and not having enough volunteers to staff what they need to do down there. And in our community, we have a great group of volunteers in our, that make our response times better, because they're getting there and starting medical care. So when we talk about successes that we've had, it's important for us to talk about our rural fire departments, our city fire department, and what they also do to help us in those, in that medical stuff and personnel.
any other questions for Nick? What we would need is approval of the December report, including the write-offs and set-off amounts stated within the report.
Make a motion to approve the December write-offs.
Second.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Chair Waymire?
Yes. And the year-end report doesn't have any fiscal, financial numbers tied to it, so I mean, we received it, I don't know that we need to vote for it, so, you agree? Okay.
We're not being told that we are about out of tape. So could we take a brief recess so that Dustin has time to change that, to make sure that we record all of this?
You bet. 5 minutes do it? All right, we'll, back at 10:42. It's 10:42, we're back in session. Our next item of business is consider the purchase of a track loader for the solid waste department. Good morning, John.
Morning, Commissioners. The Solid Waste Department has budgeted $250,000 for replacement of the landfill track loader within the replacement schedule. We also have Franklin County has a VIP maintenance agreement with Foley Equipment for 5 years, 5,000 hours for replacement of the 953D track loader. The loader has reached the completion of the 5-year cycle, and the purchase price for a new 953D WH, which is waste handler loader, is $265,000 with a trade-in allowance for the Public Works loader of $63,000, leaving a balance of $202,000 purchase price from Foley Equipment. The valuation from Foley Equipment for the existing loader is fair at $148,000, and Public Works has budgeted $85,000 to purchase the loader from Solid Waste. And what that does, just to kind of break it down into easier terms, is the purchase price, $250,000. Well, my trade-in value is $148,000. I still get that $148,000 using Public Works machine as trade plus their budgeted amount to purchase. Kind of helps everybody out in the whole grand scheme. I end up getting a loader for approximately $117,000. That's worth, an average of $250,000, $250,000. Public Works gets a gently used machine that we know the history of for, $85,000. So I'm just here to consider a motion to approve the purchase of a 2016 953D track loader from Foley Equipment in the amount of $202,000.
This is something we've done several times in the past. Like you kind of outlined, it's a way to keep good equipment. Any questions for John, or is there a motion to approve the purchase?
I got one question. I guess more for Jim. Are you not on a rotation on your loaders and so forth?
This is how I get a loader.
Yes.
You're on a rotation whenever they get rid of a good loader.
This is how I get a track loader.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a separate rubber tire loader, but this way, my loader stays between 5 and 10 years of age.
All right. Is there a motion to approve purchase?
I'll make a motion, we approve the purchase of a track loader from Foley for $202,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Chair Waymire?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Next item of business is a rezoning application.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The rezoning request that you are considering this morning is the one filed by Buddy Welch, was to rezone approximately 10 acres from an 80-acre tract to the RE residential estate zone. The property is currently zoned A1. This matter was considered by the Planning Commission in their meeting in November. It's taken some time to get an agreement for the boundary line adjustment along the east boundary where the common fence is between the Welch property and the adjoining property to the east. But that matter has now been resolved, and we do have a legal description that correctly describes the property that's being rezoned, and they have settled the fence line issue, so that matter is no longer an issue that would have to be further addressed. We would ask that the county commissioners accept the planning commission's recommendation and approve the rezoning of this 10 acres from A1 to an RE residential estate zone.
Any questions for Jim? Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, I have no questions for Larry either, so
Yeah,
I'll
Larry.
make the motion.
Yeah. Good point. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Waymire?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for sticking around. Next item of business is considering a contract for Franklin County Sheriff's Office to provide law enforcement services to the city of Pomona.
Yeah, I can handle this. You all will recall that this was in front of you, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, might have been 3 weeks. The sheriff provides law enforcement services within the city of Pomona. At that time, I asked the board to table it because we discovered in the 11th hour a revision that needed to be made to the amount. We have made that revision. It's my understanding that Sheriff Richards has been in contact with the city of Pomona. While they haven't formally approved their end of this, it's my understanding that they intend to. So if the board wants to approve it on our end today, then it will become finalized once the city of Pomona approves it on theirs. So nothing's changed about anything other than the amount, which was increased to reflect the increased cost that we as the county
All right, is there public comment on this?
Mm-hmm. Dean?
Gene Hurt, 107 Jefferson Street, Pomona, Kansas. Okay, my comments are several. It's been a month ago, you know. The city of Pomona, I attend those meetings as much as I can, and they approved to continue using the same amount of money to give to the county for what they have to pay. And so what they did, and they wouldn't explain it outright to the members that were there about how much is it? How much are you going to do? And they wouldn't answer any of us. They wouldn't answer any of us. And they have a right to answer us when we have a comment like that to what's going on, because as I found out, as I figured there was something wrong when I came here to listen, and then I find out that the city ain't done everything their part. You know, now I see what's changed, but there's some other things that's been omitted in this contract. Now, I want it right. I don't want Pomona coming back the way they act and treat the county as they do. And I mean it. So I understand then, so you're going to give them per quarter they're going to give you $16,489.87. Is that right?
I understand, do you understand the policy where?
I understand the policy very clear, Waymar. I want to make sure, because there's wording in this contract that's not right. I'm going to explain that to you here in a minute, okay? I don't want Pomona trying to get out of line or anything. I have no problem with the sheriff or with the county administrator on whatever cost you need. I want them to pay what they're supposed to pay. And I want the contract right. So is that the amount per quarter? I'm asking.
Contract reads $16,489.87.
Each quarter. Okay, and that would be a total of around $6,000 increase.
Yeah, I believe that to be the case.
Okay, now, all right, good. Now, they're having their meeting Monday night. That's why I'm wanting to make sure I'm clear here, so they don't try to manipulate something again. Okay? The other one is, the one that I see, and it may be just, a simple thing, but this is a contract. You go by a contract, you go by dates, you go by amounts that have to go. And the error here is, this is February the 1st. January 30th is already passed. And I know they ain't paid the amount of money that's due this quarter because they haven't had time to do anything or willing, even will they're going to be willing to pay this, is another thing that I found out. So you better put the right date. Are you going to do it February 1st or are you going to do February 6th when they meet on Monday night? That's what I'm concerned about. Are they going to pay that full amount? But it's not that way in the contract. Okay? Okay, I just want it on the record, because this is not January 30th, it's February 1st. Okay. Other than that, one other comment. And the sheriff told me, so if I get it wrong, the sheriff can correct me. Why don't the sheriff have more involvement in this? Huh? Why? He doesn't negotiate this. Yeah. Who sets, is it just you, Derek? Or is it somebody else with you that determine what needs to be done and not bring the sheriff in on it? That's what I want to know. See, because you set this amount, but the sheriff didn't have any input. Is that right?
Well, posterity would dictate in this situation that I defend my board, and we could not exclude the sheriff to the extent you've heard that. That is very, very inaccurate. In fact, I reached out to the sheriff on several occasions asking for his input.
Your time's up, Gene?
I ain't talked 5 minutes.
Yeah, you have.
Okay, it's just clarification. Okay, so I know when I meet next week.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the contract for Franklin County to the Sheriff's Office to provide law enforcement services to the city of Pomona?
We'll move.
Is there a second?
Second?
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. All right, our sixth item is consider approving an employment agreement between Franklin County Board of Commissioners and Derek Brown for services as county administrator and counselor, which you already have, but, well, do you, I guess, I should take this. Obviously, we've been discussing the contract for quite some time, and we've worked out the terms and all that. As is customary and due diligence, I've asked that an outside counsel review the contract, which is something we have done in the past and something that should be done. Before we make a motion to approve, I think it'd be best if we could take a 5-minute closed session for attorney-client privilege, go over those comments, and then come back out. So I would ask for a motion to that extent.
You might clarify who is going into the executive
It would just be the Board of Commissioners.
and for what purpose.
It'd be attorney-client privilege. or non-elected personnel, excuse me.
Just 5 minutes enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you think that's pretty quick.
We could do 10. I mean, there wasn't a great deal, but okay, we can do 10 then.
Make a motion, we go into executive session for 10 minutes, beginning at 10:55, for attorney, or not attorney-client, but
Non-elected.
non-elected personnel.
Before I second, there's copies to the contract in there. We have.
I've got one.
You have one.
It was, actually, I have 2. There should be one on here.
I'll second it then. Evidently not.
Well, they're on our computers, so. All right. All in favor? Any opposed?
Ignore all the scribbles on it.
How are we doing?
All right.
You do
It's
have
6.
public comment on this also.
Okay.
Are you ready for it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Gene, where did he go? Oh, okay.
Okay. So we're back out of executive session. No action was taken. I do believe we are ready to vote on this. If somebody'd like to make a motion to enter into the employment contract agreement between the board and Derek Brown.
So move.
Second.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Chair Waymire?
Yes. And I think we're happy to have Derek on board. I think he deserves to maybe have a few comments said about, we, I think, right away recognized Derek when we hired him for the counselor position as somebody that would do good transitioning into this role. And, you know, initially, we did go out and try and hire an administrator. Our thoughts were that we could work you parallel with somebody and move you into the role that way, but we couldn't find the right administrator, and instead, we decided to circle back and give Derek the right tools and support to make him successful at the job, and I don't think anybody has a doubt that he will be. Anybody else like to add anything before we move on? We have a high level of confidence in Derek and look forward to having you around for many years. Staff reports. You were out of the room.
We already called you for public comment and you were not in here.
That'll be your public comment then. Staff reports.
You're really out of line, Waymire. I'll talk to Derek in a moment.
Couple of things. As some of you know, we have been approached by an organization who wants to bring a Magna Carta exhibit to the county. And we're still learning exactly what this exhibit entails, but I was contacted by John Steelman with the district court, and it's a exhibit that's touring across the Midwest, and we were asked if we would be willing to use our old courthouse. In talking with Janet, I don't think anyone down there has any issues with it, so we're still finalizing. It looks like it's going to be sometime in the March timeframe. So when I learn more, I will pass that along, but I think it will be, I mean, that is a very, very historical document, so I find it fascinating that it's going to end up in Franklin County. So the other thing, as you know, there have been discussions about an asphalt plant located out off 15th and I-35. I know several of you were at the Planning Commission meeting, wherein the Planning Commission declined to approve a motion to locate it there. Now, that hasn't came back in front of the board yet. I believe it's currently slated to at your next meeting. Having said that, we've been contacted by the same company who is now interested in another location. And so Larry and I are working with them on the feasibility of that location, and that is something that we very well might
Maybe on a Monday study session possibly, or?
It very well might.
That'd be a great outcome.
And that is all I have.
All right. Sheriff?
The contract that you guys just approved on for Pomona is scheduled to be on their agenda on Monday. I have talked with the clerk over there, and apprised him of what those dollar differences were, and so they are prepared for that and did not perceive any problems, and we are still operating under the current extension on the previous contract. A couple months ago, the board approved for me to make a purchase that was going to send me over my budget on a UTV, but we didn't know when that was going to happen. Well, I should have just received the delivery of it. I got a call about an hour ago that said it'll be there in an hour. So we should have it now, so it won't be on that 2016 budget. And that is the one, just as a reminder that we were going to be getting, I believe it's like a 80% reimbursement rate, but we were going to be pretty close on that budget line. But that's not going to be an issue now. But we do have that, should have that received this morning. So
You said the ATV?
UTV.
Okay, no.
So anyway, we've received that. We already have the trailer for it out at Jim's lot. So
Thought you said a new TV, and it's like, when did we talk about a TV?
no, not a television.
Okay.
So anyway, that's the update on that. And then you may have heard about an incident that happened in the city of Ottawa here a couple days ago, where ended up someone fleeing a scene and crashing out in the field. And just wanted to point out that the apprehensions made on that were safe, and that our canine units were very useful in getting a peaceful surrender. So I just want to let you guys know that that is a good tool, and that it has helped keep us a lot safer out on the streets. So I'll answer any questions that you may have if you have any for me.
It's good to know. It's always good to know when those resources are needed.
Yes, thank you.
Jim?
No, sir.
I'm planning on turning in the RSVP to go to the Southeast Kansas meeting. Commissioner Oglesby's already said that he would like to go. I think Commissioner Dunn said he was unable to go. Is that correct? So I didn't know if any of the others of you wanted to go.
When was that again, Jen?
I believe
16th?
March 16th. Just want to make sure you have a space in the van if you want to go.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look. I'm not sure when. I'm going to be gone over my grandkids' spring break, so out of state. So I'm not sure when their spring break actually is. I know it's in March sometime.
If you want to just give me a call by Friday and let me know
I'll
whether,
ask a day
or
and
send
then
me an
let you
email.
know something. I'm a no.
Okay.
Or if you want to bring it back around. A couple of other things that I might as well update the board on, and you have participated in some of this. Janet Holt and I met with David Arterberry, who is our financial advisor. We met to discuss, and this is something we've been working on gradually over the last few months, but we met with him to discuss the financing of the roads out at the industrial park. Had a great conversation, and he is currently, in fact, I believe he sent us a draft of a calendar that kind of sets out the key dates for what we need to do on the financing now. There's still plenty of legwork that needs to be done. We're still awaiting, a fairly accurate, kind of a more pinpoint estimate of cost for what this is going to take. And until we have that, we're not going to be able to get anything locked down. But certainly, I want the board to know that that is something that we are working through. And the other thing, we have, and Janet and Joy have been working very, very hard on this. We're positioning ourselves for this year's budget, or the 2018 budget. We've sent community partner letters out. We have the budget calendar in place, and we are now starting to work through that. So certainly we're on top of both of those items,
We're just working on trying to get estimated revenue numbers. I was hoping to have the motor vehicle and commercial motor vehicle and watercraft estimates done, but I'm waiting on the state to get our levy numbers ready, which they figure those for every county, so that's not something unusual. They usually try to have them out as early as possible. They're just not ready yet. So once we get that, we'll start working on revenue projections, so.
As far as the industrial park, once the 90% design drawings are complete, that's when we'll have a real accurate cost on the improvements that we need to make out there. So that's an event we're kind of waiting on. But I would say in these next couple weeks, month, we'll be able to really have a solid when, how much, where, as far as boundary adjustments and all that. So.
Well, and I think just to add to that, we just, as some of the public commented today, that, we have that going and we want to get somebody in there. And I think, everybody involved wants to get somebody in there. The city's, waiting on that to make those infrastructure improvements. And likewise, we're waiting on those numbers and we want to be ready to go as soon as those are there so we can get a tenant in there. We can get someone on the tax rolls, so.
You bet. We really have done, absent some of that solid information, what we can up to this point, unless we just wanted to foolishly move ahead or throw money at it for the cost of, for the sake of being just slightly ahead of schedule. But with that being said, there's concrete information is coming in, and in the next couple months we'll be ready to do some good solid work on moving forward on that project.
And I think that's a great point. I think we could, I agree, wish we could issue bonds for far more than what we think we're gonna need just to maybe gain, I'm not even sure what we gain wouldn't be very trivial, but we're in a position to where, and not just on the finance side. I mean, Janet's been extremely helpful on the finance side, but we've also got a team, myself and Jim Haig, Larry Walrod, that on a weekly basis are working through the other issues out there, the wetland mitigation issues, just the planning issues, the legals, all of that. So I feel very good about where we're at with regard to that project and think we're gonna be, and obviously there are other parties we're dependent on, namely the engineers, to get us the info. But I feel like at this point, we're in a good position to where we're going to be able to move forward on a good timeline.
You bet. All right, commissioners' comments, board reports.
I didn't attend any meetings during this last week.
The only place that I went, I did attend the Franklin County Fire Chiefs meeting, which was last Thursday night, and there was some discussion in there about burn permit process and additions and changes they'd like to see in that, and possible penalty phase of that. And there was some discussion about an honor guard, some discussion about radio system, and I just wanted to offer myself as an avenue to be able to give them someone to talk to. So overall, it was a pretty good meeting.
All right. Information announcements are listed below. We have a study session at this time scheduled for Monday, February the 6th. With that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.
Yeah.